want to say hi to all of you watching on live stream as well. We always get a good live stream crowd. We're looking at Colossians chapter 3 today, starting with verse 12. So if you have a Bible, you can grab that. I have never believed more in my life than I do right now this statement, that the church, when it is working right, is the hope of the world. The church is God's plan A. There is no plan B. I can't tell you how many times I'll be sitting with Judy. We're watching something on Netflix, and whether it's true crime, because ladies, apparently you like true crime. It's the thing. I mean, guys, it's kind of scary. Some lady kills her husband, and your wife's going, how'd she get away with that? We'll be watching a true crime show or some drama, and I'll usually point out to her that all these problems would go away if the people in the show just went to church. I mean, honestly, this straight crazy psychopath just needs to get in a small group, No one likes me. Oh, I bet that's not true. Come on, Or the woman who's all conflicted. I don't know, should I marry Kevin or should I go off to law school? Why don't you just come to church and get some prayer from the prayer team afterwards, and we can connect you to an older couple who's been down that same road before. You can get some premarital counseling, learn how to communicate better, and maybe you can marry Kevin and go to law school. There you go. Not so hard. Pretty short movie, problem solved. Really boring. But the church, when it's working right, is the hope of the world. So we've been on this series called The Mission because we at Mountain Life are on a mission. And the mission is to make disciples, or what we're calling fearless followers of Jesus. We believe that the people of Park City and Summit County, if they are fearlessly following Jesus, the result will be we have a society that we all want to live in, whether we're Christians or not. That we're going to see less drug addiction, less suicide, less divorce, less depression, less isolation, conflict between neighbors and businesses. And correspondingly, we're going to have greater amounts of joy and peace and what right looks like when it comes to life. Because this is what happens when we live by God's rules and not ours. So a few weeks ago, we revealed our mission statement to you, and it goes like this. Mountain Life Church exists to help people. We're here to help people do what? Discover the gospel, engage in life-giving community, and advance as fearless followers of Jesus. And the three words that are the driving force behind that are discover, engage, and advance. And it's a pathway, it's a process that we're organizing the driving force, the programming of our church around to make disciples, make fearless followers of Jesus. So last week, or a few weeks ago rather, we talked about discover. And then today we're gonna be talking about engaging in life-giving community, and we're gonna save advance for another time. But honestly, what we're gonna talk about today may be the most important part of our mission right now, and where we find ourselves in our world, because when it comes to rebuilding our society, we have got to come together somehow, some way, and because we have a very fragmented culture right now. I like how this guy, Neil Ferguson, puts it in this documentary called Truth Rising, where he says this: we're living through a kind of radical dismantling of social bonds. Is it any wonder that there is this great wave of despair? I don't think we can blame it all on smartphones and social media. It's much more profound than that. It's something that we sense is going on in our society. But if our society is going to survive, we've got to reconnect people. We've got to get them talking. We've got to get people back around the living room table or the dining room table or in the living room and off of the screen. We've got to be able to learn how to treat each other as neighbors, or quite frankly, we're done. You know what I'm hoping for, really? I'm hoping for a revival of small groups. As crazy as it sounds, I'm hoping for a revival of small groups in a community. In the absence of intact families, we create new ones from the ashes of broken ones. We create new places for people where their name and their need are known. If we don't do that, it's over for us. It's Mad Max, Gotham City. It's the fall of the Roman Empire. It's just what happens when you pull a society apart. So in our passage in Colossians 3, it describes the kind of people who make life-giving community possible. And this is really important for us. It's a hard nut to crack, but it's absolutely essential. These are the kind of people that we're going to see, the qualities Paul is going to describe in Colossians 3 are the kind of things that the people that do this, you can build a society on these people. You want to live around them. You never want to live without them. A society with these types of people cannot fail. It is impossible for it to fail. It will always thrive, it will always flourish, and it will be unstoppable. So if you want to be this type of person, this is what it looks like in verse 12. This is what it says in Colossians. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which you were indeed called into one body, and be thankful. So the genius of this is the following. When it comes to society, if you want to fix the macro, you have to start with the micro. If you want to see transformation happen in a community, it has to take place one life at a time, one relationship at a time. A guy named Edwin Friedman, in his book, A Failure of Nerve, makes the point that what happens in the home spills out into the streets. And that is absolutely true. Where there is not compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, when there is no forgiveness at the granular level between husband and wife, father and son, mother and daughter, all of these relationships, when that doesn't happen, it overflows into the society at large and has second and third order consequences. And what happens behind closed doors ends up on the national news. And some of what we have seen recently, if you trace it back, there was relational disconnection. There was something deeply wrong somewhere between close relationships that should have worked right, and truth that should have been made known. But instead, people are isolated and distant, and so they find friends or connection from people they don't even know far away. And it's tribalism, and it has infected our nation. There's been a lot that's been written about this, and it's a real thing. So what does it mean to live in life-giving community? Because if that's going to be I just think that's going to be a huge answer for us going forward as part of our mission, by the way. It's amazing to me how our mission is striking right at the heart of the deepest challenges that we're facing in society today. So what does it mean to live in life-giving community? Well, let's pull a few things out of this passage. Number one, we have to act like who we are. What does that mean? Notice how he says, as God's chosen one. Put on these things as God's chosen ones, holy and dearly beloved. Let me ask you, when you wake up in the morning, is the first thought that comes into your head, I am one of God's chosen people. I am holy and I am dearly loved by God. I'll be honest with you, that's not the first thought that comes into my head in the morning. First thought that comes into my head is usually like, oh man, here we go. Right? Like, what time is it? We got to go, got to get moving. Come on, where's that, right? That's just like there's this engine that starts up, and I approach life. My default setting oftentimes is scarcity. And I act so often like I don't have a father who gives me all the resources that I need to do what he asked me to do. My default setting, quite frankly, oftentimes is atheism. That there is not a real God who can actually bail me out of whatever situation I'm in. I have to train myself to think differently. I have to train myself. See, here's the thing. With the way we act to each other has to be driven out of an overflow of what God has given to us and what he has made us. And with all this identity issue in society, this is how I identify, this is who I am, this is who I am. Actually, as a Christian, let me tell you who you are. You are a chosen person, holy and dearly loved. by God. That is the most elevating, instructive, restorative, life-giving, beautiful identity any person could possibly have in their whole life. There's nothing better than that. And because of that, my friends, it's not just a suggestion. It's not just about this kumbaya thing, like, let's just all get along together. No. I have a responsibility as someone who's been called, as someone who is dearly loved, as someone who is set apart as holy. I have a responsibility to act in accordance with who I am. So if you're a Christian, he says, put on compassionate hearts, kindness, humility. Like, what I love about that is like when you get up in the morning, you usually have to put on clothes, right? Something you're gonna wear for the day. It's not natural to you. It's not natural. These qualities aren't natural to us. We put them on like clothing, and that's how we approach the world. Some of us spend more time worried about what we're gonna wear clothing-wise than what we wear in terms of our character and how we approach people. You could say this is the dress code. You wanna know what the dress code of Mountain Life Church is? It's these things. That's the dress code. I don't care what you wear, just wear these things, like he says. These are the non-negotiables. You can't say, well, my Enneagram score actually prevents me from acting this way. Right? This is what people do. Well, I'd be more kind to you, but I don't know, what is it, like an 8 or something? You 8 people? You're the jerks, I guess. I think I'm part 8. I don't remember. I was some number. But anyway, I'm not going to define each one of these words to you. But I will say this, if you're operating out of the overflow of the love that God has shown you, then you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll get it. It will flow out of you. You won't be able to help yourself. But if you're constantly living as though you have not been chosen by God and not holy and not dearly loved, you won't even be able to fake this. It's just too hard. Life is too hard. And so, he's saying, look, based on what we know to be true about you as a Christian, this is how you were to act. So the second thing that we have to do, the second thing that it means to live in life-giving community is we bear with each other. One of the things that's so sad about church culture these days is that there are so many of them, and it's so easy to go from one to the other. I remember in Phoenix when we had pastored there for years, and there'd just be this migration of people. Pastor would say something they didn't like, some issue would come up, and you didn't handle that right, or they get mad at someone in their small group, and they'd leave the church, and they'd have their reasons, and then they'd go to the next church, and they hang out there for a few years, and then they'd leave that church. And all you learn over time is just how at some point you're going to get mad at something and you're going to leave. And you never learned how to actually stick it out. Well, in the early church, they didn't have, the first Presbyterian church of Colossae or the first whatever. They just had like one church, so you were stuck with each other. And really, that's kind of one of the reasons I love being here, because there's not a whole lot of churches out here. So you guys are stuck with each other in a lot of ways, and you're stuck with me. It's kind of fun. But this is what he says, forgiving each other as the Lord's forgiven you. So that's how you bear with people. That's a really hard thing to do, because it's one thing to forgive someone, but it's another thing to ask for forgiveness and to say, hey, I failed in this situation. Can you forgive me for that? Believe it or not, that makes you a much more attractive person. It makes you a much more tolerable person. Henry Cloud, in his book Integrity, has asked this amazing question. He says, every person should ask themselves this question: is it a blessing or a curse to be associated with me? What is your presence, what is your behavior demanding out of other people who have to hang out with you? And so what happens is, as you put these things on, and as you learn to forgive, we learn to forgive each other, we learn how to bear with each other over the long haul. And this is bigger than you think it is. So Judy and I were invited to have dinner with a group of people who call themselves the Fourth Row Group. You know who you are. Hey, fourth row, wave your hands. Yeah, wave your hands. This is a Fourth Row Group. And there's more of them, but that's just this part of the Fourth Row Group. And it was an amazing time. They call themselves this because they sit there in the fourth row. And this group is made up of our wonderful older saints. Congratulations, they have made it a long way, longer than most of us. And that's how they describe themselves, by the way, too. There are many things, they are not young. So we go over there, and We had the greatest time in the world. They had all this food, they were laughing, and one of them said, hey, Tim, we're gonna get t-shirts to say, we're the fourth row and we want an organ. And at first I was like, what do you mean, like a kidney or a liver? Because I don't know. And they're like, no, like a pipe organ. In my mind, I'm like, oh shoot, how do I tell him? Like, well, we really want to have music that's contemporary with the people. And he's like, I'm just kidding. Come on over here and have some more wine. We just got it from Paris, not Evanston. I'll tell you, we left with our hearts full that night. Here are people who have, at least for a good number of them, been meeting together for decades. They've known each other for years. And we're just, they're gathering us and they're asking us questions. They're telling us about their lives, not just the good things, but the hard times. Very open about even their own struggles and failures throughout their lives. And it was so life-giving to us, to me and to Judy. We walked away going, that was awesome. It really was. And you can't fast track that. It's a result of people who've met together for years over the long haul. It's like compound interest. I would say this to the younger crowd here. Those of you that, now by younger, I mean like 75 or below. Do not discount the value of sticking together with other people for the long haul. It's like saving for retirement. It's hard to see the benefit when you're young, and it feels like a big sacrifice. But one day you turn a corner and you go, wow, look how this investment has grown. It doesn't go like this, it goes like this. And I will just say, I hope that Judy and I have half of what these people have when we get to be where they are, and hopefully we will. Because we have to, this is something, and it's so easy to just go in and out of relationships. Because we have to understand that when we get close to each other, we chip away each other's rough edges. The beautiful thing about being in a small group is that over time, at least in theory, it should make you less weird. It should. Because if you go to a small group and all you do is talk, and you never listen, eventually the small group leader is going to pull you aside and say, hey, look, we love you. But part of this is, it's not all about you. You got to learn how to listen to people. And maybe that's a skill because of your own life and your own background. You just never really learned how to do that well. And so you didn't understand why it seemed like relationships were weird, but maybe someone can talk honestly to you. And when you're forced to not just be online all the time or be by yourself or walk your dog all the time, you actually be with other people. You have to change who you are to be able to understand that you're not the center of the universe. And that's a very healthy and wonderful thing. And people open up to you when you communicate that. But there actually is at some point an opportunity for it to be all about you, because if you get into a rooted group, in the rooted group, there's an opportunity for you to share your story, your life story. Judy and I did that at the rooted group that we are in just this past week. I shared my story, she shared her story. It was our turn. And it's a beautiful thing. Most people never have the opportunity to have an audience for people to listen, to share about who they are. And so they just kind of process things in isolation. But to be able to sit with people and have them hear, not just, oh, this is when I became a pastor and this is when we got married. Like, that's just details. But what are the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life? And I shared some stuff that I'm not going to share with the rest of you right now. You know, some disillusioning things that happened in my life that I'm still kind of going like, what was that? What was that? And to have them all go, wow, thank you for that. We always get afraid that if people knew this or that about me, that they would not want to be around me, but it's actually the opposite. Because for the first time in your life, you're a real person. You're not hiding behind your theology or your accolades. Nobody cares. No one cares about that stuff but you. You know? Now, granted, if you're like wanted by the FBI or something, that is something that if you share, that's different. But other than that, you're pretty safe, or at least you should be. And you share your story and you become more relatable and more understandable. But you bear with each other. This is how we bear with each other. We don't, this is why we do small groups. You can't do that when you're sitting here all facing the stage. You're not going to do that. And what we're learning is that in the absence of some place that feels like home for people, they stop becoming, they devolve. They become fragmented. I was reading an article just about this recently, even just the effect on the lockdowns had on a lot of our kids. We still won't really know what it was like for our kids to be isolated for as long as they were at critical times in their life. That's why I'm saying there's some damage we're going to have to undo, like seriously, by getting people back together in three-dimensional, real, relational, local community. And this is the third thing I would say, is we have to embrace the individual, not the tribe. See, he says, above all these things, like when all is said and done, just put on love. You know why? Because that's the thing that binds everything together and makes it harmonious. And let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, which indeed you were called to one body. Now, what you may not understand about Colossians is that underneath the surface of all this is a major ethnic tension between Jews and Gentiles. This is far beyond what we can really understand. It's impossible to overstate how much these two groups were at odds with each other. And they are put in the same church now, and Paul is saying, you need to become one new body out of your ethnic and racial and cultural differences. So you have a Gentile that ends up in a small group with a Jewish person. You're like, oh, great. It's like if you're a Democrat, you might end up in a group with a Republican. And if you go, well, let me tell you why Trump, blah, 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 how is that going to work in building a relationship? But you know what? Honestly, you'll go do that all over the place. Well, and you lead with some statement about an issue when the person that you're supposed to connect with is on the other side of that. How do you think that's going to go? Wow, I never thought about that. You're right. I really like you. That's probably not going to happen. So what you got to do is get away from the tribe and talk to the individual. I'm really serious about this because if we don't get this, there's no use for us on the planet as Christians. So if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you might end up a Democrat. If you're a skier, you might end up in a group with a snowboarder. I didn't even know they could be Christians, Tim. But one of the most powerful things about the gospel is that it takes us out of our tribalistic mentality, what we might also know today as identity politics. Tribalism is primitive and backward. It's destructive. And we have to fight it every step of the way because what it says is it doesn't matter what you believe or what we might have in common. It doesn't matter your skills or your character or anything of that. It's all about your blood. It's all about what the blood that's in your veins. It's all about the way that you look. It's all about where you're from. And because of that, we can never meet. And you see over and over and over, most of the New Testament, really, if you want to look at it, most of the New Testament, at least Paul's letters, is all about the church getting past that stuff. Because the early church was doing that to each other. But you're called to one body. Right now, our nation has no solution, zero solution to identity politics. They have no idea how to deal with it. But there's something beautiful about what the gospel does because the gospel unites us around a common identity. I am a sinner, you are a sinner. I don't deserve heaven, you don't deserve heaven. But we've both been shown grace by a holy God. So if he is good enough and loving enough and gracious enough to show me grace, maybe I am, could be somebody that shows you grace. Because the grace that God had to show me was a whole lot bigger than the grace I need to show you. If you got a better way to do it, come on up and tell me, because I haven't found one. There isn't one. The gospel gets us past some of this stuff. Many of you may not know this, but we have a Spanish-speaking congregation that meets in the loft at the third service. For those of us, it's impossible to know if you don't have to deal with this, about the immigration stuff, what life has been like for those who are here. But it's not just about our Spanish-speaking people. Can I just share your journey? Is that all right? Yeah, so we have David, Micah over here. If you ever heard them talk, you know they're not from around here. They are from Holland. They are Hollish. Nah, it's Dutch. Don't worry, we're reminded of that all the time. And for the past 6 months, what you don't know, they've been coming up here doing their thing, all smiley. They've been on pins and needles because the rules changed, because they changed, and their visa, while everything was on a certain course, the course changed, and they had to do some things, and they were on pins and needles because if they did not get what they needed to get their visa renewed, they're out of here. And it was literally down to the wire. They were doing they were broken no law, done nothing wrong. It's just the rules changed because the rules needed to change in order to deal with some of the issues that are going on in society. So they changed. No comment on that at all. But because of that, it had these second and third order consequences where our own worship leaders almost just had to take off. It was a real possibility about a couple months ago. So we were making all kinds of phone calls and doing all kinds of things, and thankfully, it worked out. And they are legal. It's all good. Unfortunately, however, for those in our Spanish-speaking ministry, some of them were not so fortunate. One family in particular has been with us for 7 years, live here very legally, following all the laws, gainfully employed, owning property, just everything is on the up and up. But because they're from Venezuela, the law changed regarding Venezuela because the government in Venezuela is pretty rotten. It just is. That's a fact. And so the United States government had to deal with that. And in dealing with that, it has consequences that filter out. And so 2 weeks ago after the third service, I was all excited about our third service launch and talking to people and laughing with people. And then I had to go up to the loft where the mood was more like a funeral. There was about 50 people. The family was up front. The wife was in tears saying goodbye to teenage kids, beautiful, wonderful family. And I had to step out of myself and realize, dude, you just walked into like a death right now. So simmer down, because I had to go up and pray, and I had to totally change my mindset. I didn't realize what the mood was like up there. It's a tearing apart. These are people who were here every single Sunday. They weren't just here for the summer or halftime. Now, there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying these people were here every single Sunday without fail. They were serving in the church, always had smiles on their faces. And when I saw them, I didn't know who they were. I wasn't sure because I got the name, but I wasn't. And I saw and went, oh, not them. Oh, they're so cool. But that is the state of our Spanish-speaking congregation right now. They are going through some of the most challenging times of their lives, and they're not doing anything illegal. The United States knows they are here. Their status is fine. But if it changes, and it has, and it continues to, they face a massive life-altering event where they say goodbye to their friends, their home, what they've known, and they go to whoever knows where. One of the things that we have to do as mature people is we have to learn how to separate the issue from the individual. Are you hearing me? You have to separate the issue from the individual, the policy from the person. We have to get this kind of stuff right. It's possible to agree with the macro level concept, for example, of securing borders. It's possible to agree with that trajectory and that course and yet still mourn the loss of Christian brothers and sisters who love Jesus just as much as we do, who want to follow the law just as much as we do, and are impacted by the ripple effects of things that are far beyond what any one person can really predict or control. And that's brutal. But it helps us understand that we as Christians, we can sympathize, we can mourn for, we can encourage, we can be sad for those who are going through difficult things. It's not their fault that Venezuela is run by a corrupt, godless regime. It's not their fault. And those aren't my words, by the way. That's their words. The point is, we own this area, by the way. This is our department, this kind of stuff. This ability to be able to separate the issue from the individual, this is what we do well, because the Bible commands us to do this well and to not see people in terms of tribe, but as individuals. It's what makes one body out of many. E pluribus unum, right? Isn't that on our coins? Where do you think that came from? Came from this. So what do I do about this? Well, here's your challenge. Get in a group. Just get in a group. Get in some type of small group. And you think, well, that's pretty, that's not that hard. Well, it's really, really important, because I tell you, I want every person in Park City to be in a small group Bible study. Do you know how much healthier our town would be if every person that resided here had somebody could be in a living room once a week with a Bible and a few other people? What do you think would happen to marriages in this town? To parenting? To isolation that we so often feel? I want every person in this town to be both giving and receiving compassion and kindness where their name and their need are known, talking about Scripture, reminding each other that they're forgiven and that God has not abandoned them. If we have a town that does that kind of stuff, like if our town did that, a town like that can't lose. You cannot lose. It becomes an incredibly beautiful place. No, it's not perfect because we're imperfect. That's why we have to bear with each other, forgive each other, patch up this stuff. But I'm telling you, if you want to be part of the solution, you can't just sit and watch the news or get online and be mad at the world. That doesn't do anything for anybody. You've got to start at the granular level, starting with your own home. Is there peace in your home? Because if there's not, you got to figure that out. Because eventually, the little butterfly effect, something that happens from the discord in your home is going to end up, in the park record. Nobody wants to be in the park record. Unless it's a good thing. It's going to spill out into the street. But it goes beyond your home. It's how can I be the compassion, the safe place, the home for someone else? We've never been more mobile, which is beautiful. We've never been more mobile, never had more freedom. But I'm haunted by the phrase that I heard, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. And we need to think about that. At some point, I got to figure out where my home is. And then maybe I can create a home for others. That's why this is in the Word of God. We make a new family out of the broken ones. We make a new culture out of a fragmented culture. We make a new civilization out of the ashes. That's a big vision, but that's what we want to do here in this town. And we just want anyone and everyone who wants to go on the journey with us. Because if we succeed, it will be in Park City as it is in heaven. Let's pray. God, we just ask for this. We are here for a reason. We got some deep problems in this culture. We have some very broken people, isolated, lonely. Some are in this room, and they just feel like, I have no root anywhere. God, may we be a church that gives people a home where their name and their need can be known. That our character, everything that we do, flows out of the abundance of your love and your grace. We don't earn it. You gave it to us. Because if we had to earn it, you would be a God not worthy of worship. Like any angry father. Grow up and leave the house as soon as you can. It's not you. You're a good father. And you want good fathers, and you want good mothers who are full of grace, full of kindness. And you want adoptions. We have been adopted. You made a new family out of us. God, may we see beyond what's in front of us. We beg for heaven, but we beg to see glimpses of it here. Use us. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for this mission. Thank you for this assignment. We gladly and enthusiastically accept. In Jesus' name, amen.